All right, so now we've got some new vocabulary. Complementary and supplementary angles. Complementary means the two angles add up to 90. Here you can tell they add up to 90 because they're the two pieces that make up the right angle. And here they're not connected, but I know that 20 plus 70 makes 90. So they are complementary. Same thing, but adding up to 180 is what supplementary is. So here there's supplementary, I can tell because it makes a straight line. Here there's supplementary because 115 plus 65 makes 180. Now, the way I keep track of them, see how the 90 degree one is a C, starts with a C, and the 180 one starts with an S. C comes before S in the dictionary, right? In the alphabet, C comes before S, and 90 comes before 180 on the number line. So you can use that to keep track of them the words are familiar to you, and you know the one with the one that comes first is the 90, the one that comes second is the 180. You'll be good. So click that. Then we have a little more vocabulary here. Adjacent angles. Adjacent angles share a common side. They have a common vertex and a common side. So these two are adjacent, these are not. Notice these two are adjacent, right? Because they share a common side and the same vertex. Think of adjacent as meaning that you could add them together to make a bigger angle. Can add to, so terrible looking handwriting, make bigger angle. See how these two together make the straight angle? The ones we were looking at up here, those guys, you can't really see it now, but those two, those are adjacent. These are adjacent. Let's look if there's some more adjacent. So these guys are adjacent. These guys are adjacent. These are not. They share a side, but they don't have the same. They don't have the same vertex. So these are not adjacent. And it wouldn't make sense to add this angle plus this angle. What does that make a new angle? No, it doesn't. But these two, see how? Let me draw in here. See how this angle plus this angle would make this big angle here? That's what makes them adjacent. Okay, one more vocabulary word, or two more. There is a linear pair, which is adjacent angles that make a line. So they're adjacent angles that make a line. With the non-common sides make a line. So a linear pair, there's the word line in there, like a line pair. See how these two angles together make a line? These two, 3 and 4, are a linear pair. And so are 4 and 6. And so are 5 and 6, because they make a straight line. But we've got one more relationship to talk about, and that's what's called vertical angles. Angle 4 and angle 5. See how they're across from each other like this? When you have an intersection, and the angles are across from each other, they're not next to each other, they're across from each other. That's what vertical angles are. So, for example, in this picture right here, angle 1 and angle 5 are vertical angles. Now, 2 and 4 are not, because see how 2 and 4, they're not made by the same lines? And 1 and 3, no. But 1 and 5, yes. Because the idea is you got two lines, you pick one, it's not this one's adjacent. This one. Or it could be this one and this one. See how they're opposite each other? When I was a kid, we referred to, I grew up in Texas, so we referred to that as being catty corner. If you were in an intersection, and somebody was here and they were the opposite corner, we call that catty corner, also known as vertical angles. Okay, hold on a second, clear this. Top. Okay. So, the vertical line, so notice there's 1, 2, 3 lines here, right? So the linear pairs is a little weird here because you wouldn't say, so none of just the numbered ones form linear pairs, because 1 and 2, that doesn't make a straight line. 2 and 3 doesn't make a straight line. So none of the numbered pairs here make a linear pair, but there's lots of vertical angles here. Angle 1 and angle 4, right? These guys are opposite each other. 2 and 5, right? See how those are opposite each other? So 1 is opposite 4. Use different marks here. 2 is opposite 5, and 3 is opposite 6. All of those are vertical angles. And what's great about vertical angles, they're going to tell you soon, is they're always congruent to each other. We're going to use that a ton, but they are always congruent to each other. Very handy. Okay. So this is important. Let's go over this. Concept summary, interpreting a diagram. There are some things you can conclude from a diagram and some things you cannot. For example, here are some things you can conclude, that means know that are true from this diagram. All the points are coplanar. We assume when they're drawing, unless they've done something to make things look crazy 3D, that it's all on the same plane. That's always true. A, B, C are collinear. They're in a line. They made it look like a line. It's a line. A, C, B, D, and B, E intersect at point B. Yeah, we can see they all have also notice they all have the point B in them. Adjacent angles, this angle and this angle are adjacent. Also, this angle and this angle are adjacent. And point E lies in the interior of DBC. So DBC, this is inside them. So in other words, that's part of the definition for adjacent. You cannot conclude that A, B, and B, C are equal to each other. They look like they're kind of equal to each other, but they didn't put the marks. They didn't put the marks. Also, we don't know that ABD is a right angle. It kind of looks like it is, but they didn't tell us. They didn't put, in order for that to be true, they would have to do this little mark. They have to go like that. Then that would be true. Yeah, they were just talking about that. Here, notice the things that they would, if they wanted to make those two angles congruent to each other, see how they made the marks? Now the marks don't look exactly the same, right? This one's in a little farther than this one is, but it only has one mark, as opposed to, they didn't do this. Like if they'd have marked this one with one mark and this one with two marks, that would be saying they're definitely not congruent. But if they mark each of them with the same amount of marks, they're congruent. And the little marks here would have said that A, B, and BC were congruent, and this would have said that that was a right angle. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to end this recording.